Hi, hey, hello, and good morning. And thank you for attending VirtuousCon 2023. I'm super happy to be here, and welcome to our panel, Past, Present, and Future, LGBTQ Characters in Comics. I'm your moderator, DJ Kirkland, and just a little bit about me before we get into introducing our amazing panel of experts. I'm a professional comic book artist and writer. Some of my work includes my debut graphic novel, The Black Mage. I've also worked on Teen Titans Go comics, Gretzko comics, the Dream Daddy comics, and the GLAAD-nominated anthology Young Men in Love. And I'm just gonna go around the circle here, and we're gonna start with Robyn. It's Robyn Smith, pronouns she, her. Robyn is a Jamaican cartoonist known for her mini comic, The Saddest, Angriest Black Girl in Town, illustrating DC's comics Nubia, A Real One, written by Ella McKinney, and Black Jesse Press's Wash Day, written by Jamila Rouser. She has an MFA from the Center for Cartoon Studies and has also worked on comics for College Humor, Nike, and The Nib. She loves cake and her cat, Benson, and holds onto dreams of returning to the ocean. I love that. I love that.
Thank you.
Yes, welcome, Robyn. Welcome. Next up, we have Stephanie Williams, pronouns she, her, she, like the candy, is a comics writer. She now has 2 ongoing webcomics, Parenthood Activate, but What If Though? In addition to the Living Heroes on Kickstarter, her comics credits include Marvel's Voices, Legacy, Wonder Woman, Black and Gold, Nubia and the Amazons, Trial of the Amazons, Nubia Coronation Special, Nubia Queen of the Amazons, Wakanda #1, and more. She's currently adapting Maggie Stagfar's hit YA series, A Raven Cycle infographic novel series. And then, last but certainly not least, one of my friends from social media, Michael, aka the Black Comic Book Geek. Pronouns are he, him. Michael is a content creator that loves to talk blood, sex, gore, and magic. On any variation of the 4, he strongly believes that representation equals normalization, so he wants to bring his voice to Black queer nerds and queer nerds of color who are often left out of these nerd spaces. And can I get an amen for that, because it is so true. So
hallelujah.
Yes. So welcome everybody, welcome panelists. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to come to VirtuousCon and bring your expertise to this conversation, because it is a conversation that we are constantly having, both online, offline, all of that stuff. So just before we get started, folks that are tuning in, to just hold your questions for the Q&A section. We'll leave about 10 to 15-ish minutes at the end for your questions. So anything that you want to ask us, just please hold on to that for until the end. And let's just jump into it. So, as our panel description states, queerness in comics is nothing new, but in recent years, there's been a huge need to expand that representation. Very huge need to expand that representation. And for me, like, I grew up like in the Borders, Barnes and Nobles, in the manga section. So for me, I saw a lot of, I would say, queer coded content, but never explicitly said. So for those of you that are tuning in, if you're not familiar with the term queer coded, which essentially means like, it's not explicitly said that these characters are queer, but there are often attributes or stereotypes that you see that are attributed to those characters that are often coded as queer. So you see a lot of that, at least many, many years ago, you would see a lot of that stuff coded in manga, but has been more explicit now, which is great. Characters are declaring their gender identity expression, which is good. But in regards to Western comics like Marvel or DC or an Image comic, I believe if my quick Google searching shows me that I did over the past couple of days, the first openly queer comic book character, at least from Marvel, is North Star. Is that correct, Michael? Could you correct me on that if that's not correct or not?
Correct. It was North Star.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So talk to me a little bit about that character. Anybody that's familiar with the character North Star and that representation, how has that been perceived in the comic? How has it been received? Talk to me a bit about that.
Well, I'll go first, but before I talk about that really quick, I just want to shout out all of you guys on this panel. Like, when I found out that I was going to be on this panel with all of you guys, like, I was like, why am I even here? Like, I'm not working. Like, I support all of you guys and stuff. Like, look at this, Nubia. I got Nubia. I got I got Nubia Real One, Robyn Smith. I got DJ Kirkland stuff, that Dream Daddy, the Black Mage. So like, I'm a supporter of all you guys. So I was like, wow, I'm on this panel with Olympian gods, and I'm just like the peasant on Earth. Like, I was like, I shouldn't even be here, but
not even.
I just wanted to give you guys your flowers. Like Wayne's World, we're not worthy. We're not worthy. But anyway, not to go back to the conversation. I would say like, yeah, North Star's representation in the comics, like, and it was really just like something that was hinted at previously before, like people speculated, but it was never like fully out there, quote unquote, in your face. But then one day in the comic, you actually had a panel where he said, "I'm gay." But then even with that, it was like a lot of problematic issues where like North Star caught the legacy virus, which is basically, you know, the version of AIDS. His child died. Wolverine killed him. Like there was a whole bury your gays trope in this whole in the whole thing. And then like the first on panel same-sex kiss in Marvel didn't happen until like I think it was 2005, 2000. I don't remember the year, but it was in an X-Force comic with a pink mutant named Bloke. And then the same comic that they introduced his love interest and they had that same sex kiss, he died like a couple pages later. So it was a living in the bury your gays trope. So it's like, at least in terms of the mainstream comics, Marvel and DC, like even Extraño, who's like, I believe the first openly gay character in DC, you know, he was overly flamboyant. He caught like a HIV like virus in the DC universe, Midnight in a Pot. Like, so it was a lot of problematic issues that transpired in comics. But thankfully, because of people like you guys and people calling for more better representation, now we are slowly getting, you know, Nubia, Wiccan and Hulkling, Thunder, Grace Choi, et cetera, et cetera. So, but it started very, 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 very problematic. And then even with that, like a lot of the queer characters, even to this day, a lot of them are white. So it's like, even to this, like I said before, like if I wanted to cosplay as a Black gay superhero, all all I really have is Aqualad.
Yeah, I was gonna say what options other than Aqualad do you have, right?
And I'm bald, so I can't do the blonde hair. So
we can do an installation. That's not that ain't no problem. We have vibranium lace that you can get today. So
lace
yes, we can make that happen with some got to be hairspray. You're gonna be good to go. So I want to kind of go back to you mentioning the barrier gaze trope. So I'd like to pass that to either Robyn or Stephanie. Can you explain to people that are in the audience what that trope is, the barrier gaze trope?
Sure, but real quick, I just wanted to bring up back to North Star.
Please.
There's an issue that always stuck out to me from Alpha Flight 106, where they talk about HIV and AIDS, and it's a conversation between him and I believe Guardian. I might be wrong, but it's Canada is like Captain America or whatever. But anyway, that's the same issue where the baby he adopts who contracted HIV and then had full-blown AIDS ends up dying. But I thought that issue always stood out because it came out in the 90s, but the conversation that they have is very raw. So his name is Guardian, I could be wrong, but his whole point of view there was that the baby got all this coverage, but his son died of AIDS and was pretty much shunned. Like a lot of just folks in the queer community at the time where they weren't getting coverage, were treated like it was just they had leprosy and all of that, and they got very real in the conversation. And I just always thought that was I don't know, something I wouldn't have expected then. But I'm finding that a lot of comics that are 80s, 90s were accidentally way more progressive than what we get now. So anyway, I just wanted to bring it up about because that was a comic I just love. But as far as bury your gays, you introduce your gay character and then you kill them. Same thing with women getting fridged. You know, you don't need marginalized voices for too long. Just need a little speck of it and then you get rid of them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so tired and boring, and it again, like that's like we're getting crumbs of that representation where it's like we're literally on the page for like 2 to 3, maybe even a full page if you're lucky, and then that character is gone forever. But It is unfortunate. Let's see. So while we definitely have seen examples of queer comics, especially like in like the 80s and the 90s, to where they do introduce queer characters, and they sometimes the representation either it's not the best. Has there been any comic books in the past, in addition to what you're just saying about the conversation with North Star and the character about AIDS, how it was actually a raw conversation and like oddly like very progressive for a comic to come out in the time that it did? Are there any other examples from anybody on the panel that you've seen in comics that you've read either in the past or not even or even that recently that has solid representation?
Nubia, Nubia
I
and
mean,
the
that's given
Amazons.
like they're on Themyscira, so I'm like, I feel like that just was intuitive. But un- I mean, no, I mean, not that anything that I've read that stood out, but everything has been either queer coded or subtext, and all of that. Because thank you, Comics Code Authority, for making that the way that it is.
Yeah, and then like getting any of that representation at all, it's like it's rarely ever done by actual queer people. So it feels like they're basically basing our experiences based on like a very small like bulleted list of like, these are things about queer people, like HIV, flamboyant, a drag queen, or this. And it's like they're like, we are just people, and there's more to our experiences than our identity. It's an aspect of who we are, but it's not everything that we are. And it often feels as if that we are put into these like on a very special episode, kind of like versions of that in comics or in movies or whatever, like, or just like it's like a line that's mentioned at some sort of grieving meeting. It's like, yeah, my partner died or whatever. like it's just, that's not representation. Like it's not,
No.
that's not what it is. It's like we want like fully realized characters that have backstories, that have dreams, that have desires, that have motivations, that are not purely based on their sexuality and their gender identity or expression. Like we're just people.
And that's and I was gonna say, and that's the thing though, right? Going into what you were saying, like a lot of people, especially when it comes to like these writers in like mainstream comics, because most of them are written by straight white men most of the times, and they'll try to be a little bit progressive and introducing more diverse characters, but especially when it comes to queer characters and then even Black characters, like they don't realize like my queerness isn't just about who I sleep with.
Right.
My queerness determines who I choose and choose not to be friends with. It determines who I choose and choose not to vote for in terms of political candidates, what I choose and choose not to support, the spaces I feel or not feel comfortable in entering. It's more than just my actual sexuality. And same thing with my Blackness, just like how my Blackness navigates how I walk through the world. It's just like, also like, and it's one thing that irks me all the time when it comes to Black characters in comics, and that's why I love Stephanie. I love you when it comes like with Living Heroes. Like, why have we never seen Black superheroes hang out together like on a and it only happens on Black History Month? Storm is in a mansion with nothing but a bunch of white mutants. You mean to tell me she's not having a conversation with like Frenzy about how Jean Grey tried to touch her hair? Like, it's not realistic. It's not realistic. Or just Black women. There's not that many Black women in the X-Men X Mansion as it is. It's unrealistic for Black women not to check in on each other, or just Black people in general. Like for Storm to be the motherly figure, to be the main Black superhero, for her not to like. There was a moment where she like tried to mentor Oya, who was a new mutant in the comics, and then all of a sudden it was dropped. They never went back to it. Then you never seen Oya again. Or they'll introduce these diverse characters like Oya, and she was a big part of the whole mutant lights thing. And then these characters drop. Like I remember a couple years ago, I did like every single month, like Black History Month, Hispanic History Month, Native American History Month, Asian History Month. I profiled these characters every single day of the month. And I was like, wow, there's mad characters, and like they don't get you, like it's like they get the one run and then they disappear. And it's like, it's trash, like especially considering like, especially going back to X-Men, because that's like my main expertise. but like how it's supposed to represent the marginalized. But yeah, it's always written by mostly straight white men in terms of the main books. And then like you've never seen an all Black team of X-Men or whatever. And then like you'll have like the gentrification. Like currently the X-Men have a treehouse in Central Park ran by mostly white people, and then they're going to call it Seneca Village or Seneca after a mostly all Black village. It's like, I get like I'm not
I see what you're trying to do.
I get what you're trying to do. Like you're trying to keep the name Seneca alive and, you know, represent it so people know what Seneca is. And I appreciate that, Jerry Duggan, but it also feels like gentrification to me. Like, so yeah. Sorry.
No, do not apologize. Please do not apologize at all. I mean, this is information that as someone that's like not caught up at all on like the X-Men stuff, right? Especially like this is good to know.
Same. Yeah, I feel like I know so little about the history of a lot of these mainstream comics. I grew up in Jamaica and like I wasn't reading any of these.
Yeah.
And I still don't. And it's for this reason. Like right. It takes a lot like for me to read anything. Like I have to know it's being made by like a Black person or like a queer person, particularly a Black queer person would be ideal. Yes. Shout out Nubia and the Amazons. Yeah, no, I feel like I'm really, really into a lot of more indie comics because I like know that all these like queer Black folks are making things for themselves and are producing them themselves, and then I will give them my money instead. Exactly.
And that's kind of like a great question, a great way to kind of lead into like another question. Like as a comic book artist and a writer myself, I often think about whenever I'm coming up with like a new story idea or even just like drawing characters just like for the fun of it, I'm like, I'm going to hyper focus on those characters being Black. I'm going to hyper focus on them being having those marginalized identities, those intersections of being Black, brown, queer, all of that. So while we've definitely talked about how the representation has not been good, what is your mindset going into creating your own content and writing your own stories or drawing or illustrating your own stories? Like what do you try to keep in mind with everything that you do? I know for me, it's being like a not skinny queer Black person. I want to have characters that reflect people that look like me on the page, because I don't see characters that look like me on the page at all. So I want to bring that kind of energy to the page and write stories based on my own experience or whatever, but just something that's different, because we don't really get to see that stuff. And it's especially hard to pitch books to these publishers because they're often owned by white folks that are kind of like out of touch with LGBTQIA plus stuff, and especially some with people of color. So pitching a book that's very much rooted in these marginalized identities can be tough. So like, what do you do when you are trying to bring ideas to the table? Like what is your thought process for making new stories or like bringing your ideas to an established franchise or characters?
I don't know. I guess just talking specifically to Nubia and the Amazons, my whole thought process there is like, well, y'all call me up, so I hope whatever it is I submit that you take, because I don't know, either way they're going to get that, because I am a queer Black woman. I can only speak to kind of those experiences, so that is going to show up in the work. It's going to show up in the work, whether it's Nubia, it's going to show up in the work, whether it's I'm writing Wolverine. Whoever I'm writing, it is going to show, because as we said, queerness is not just who you are with. It is not just how you present yourself. It is all the things that make you you. And in the case of Nubia and the Amazons, because Themyscira does not have the same kind of social constructs that we do, right? They don't really deal with racism. They don't deal with sexism. They don't deal with any of those things because they are Amazons. They have other, I guess, shortcomings and everything, but not that directly. So with that, it was great, because then I could just let it be what it is, right? And foster queer relationships on that island, and in itself, community of it all. Because what is queerness without community? So being able to lean into that and bring that to whatever it is, the story that I'm writing, because at the end of the day, I don't know, like because I'm there and because of who I am, that story is going to be inherently Black. It's going to be inherently queer, regardless of how the characters look. But it's always great when those characters look like someone that you can identify with.
Absolutely.
I always say representation equals normalization. So
absolutely. I couldn't agree more with that. It's I go into every project that I want to make is like I'm putting Blackness and queerness in the forefront because I'm a Black queer person. That's always going to show up in the work, regardless of what it is that I'm doing. I've been fortunate and blessed enough to work on a couple of queer projects, which has been like so refreshing because I could feel like I could come to the page and fully bring myself to them and it be like celebrated. And I think it shows up in the work. I think when we're allowed to kind of like be ourselves and to be free, when we have the space to do that, when we are told by like the publisher or the editor, like, no, do you? I think it's probably one of the most like liberating things ever in comics to have somebody that's in a position of power that says, hey, what you do and we want that on the page. So please, like, go for it. That's what we want. I think that's one of the best. That's one of the best ways I think you're going to get the more authentic stories that we're wanting to see. Because again, we've seen so many stories in whether it be comics, TV, film, animation, where we see these queer stories either fall flat or they fall into these same tropes over and over and over again. Like when we actually get to be behind the scenes, when we get to be the ones that are writing the scripts, that are drawing the pages, and that are doing the editing, like that stuff shows up on the page, and it's way more authentic because we can actually speak to that experience because it's our experience. And it's like a beautiful thing to see whenever we have the opportunity to do so. So anytime I've been given an opportunity, I try to run with it and like and fully show up to those, because again, I want people to go into the comic book shops or the Barnes and Noble or whatever to be able to like look through and see something that looks like them, or they can see something they can identify with and go home and be like, wow, this is cool. I've never seen something like a story about like older queer men falling in love. I've never seen this about queer Black women on an island of only women being incredibly badass. Like it's like the ability to be able to do that and to have the space to do that is so important. And I'm glad that, you know, I can speak for all of us that when we show up to bring that to the page and to our audiences online and all that good stuff. I love it.
And not only just that, and this is also why voices like you guys are important that actually work in the comic book industry, as opposed to me just talking about it, but like, because I'm tired of subtext in comics. Like I want effing text. And a lot of times you always get like the think about like the subtext that's been existing for years between like Tim Drake and Connor Kent. People have been like, queer audiences have been saying for years, like, oh, they're together. And even comic book writers would like make jokes or put references of them getting dressed in the closet. And then they like will make a joke on Twitter or like currently in X-Men, they flat out say Wolverine, Cyclops, and Jean Grey are in a throuple, but we never see Cyclops and Wolverine have any type of interaction together. But we see Cyclops and Jean or Wolverine and Jean, but not, they just have references as subtext to Cyclops and Wolverine having sex. And it's like, I'm tired of that. Or just other characters where they hint at possibly, or going into like the television round. I don't know if you guys watch Supernatural, but like Dean and Castiel, like it's been a thing for years. And it wasn't until the last episode of the show, 15 seasons of the show, that they finally came out and had Castiel say, Dean, I love you. And then they bury your gaze. They killed him off. And don't get me started on Supernatural. But I'm like,
I saw that community in shambles on social media.
15 seasons. And it wasn't until the last episode. It's like, why? And it kind of makes me wonder, like, are they being ham-fisted by the studio or like, so it does make me wonder that, because also going back to comics, like what most people don't realize, Because a lot of times when I talk about representation and all, people are like, "Oh, why does everything have to be gay, bro?" Like when it comes to like shipping, people they'll be like, "Oh, why can't two men just be in a platonic, intimate relationship?" And I'm like, because that's always what it is. I'm like, name me one mainstream movie, show, video game, comic, anything where they start off as a platonic friendship and it morphs into a queer romance. It doesn't happen. Actually,
wait, I got one.
I was gonna say I actually got one. It happened like last year, and that was Our Flag Means Death on HBO.
Well, and I got another one, Batwoman. So with when they introduced Ryan as a new Batwoman, her and I'm forgetting the name of the woman who played. I guess she was a police officer or like GPC. I don't know, like the other Gotham police. Anyway, it started off as frenemies and then became lovers, which I was totally here for because I unfortunately love that toxic trope. But anyway, like it went from frenemies, it became friends, and then the platonic thing grew into romance. But then the show got canceled, and we will not get to see that relationship blossom in a way. But like they did they built that up, and it was nice to see. And I hope that we get more of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there you go. Two examples but people are like, oh, why does it always have to be gay? It never is. It never is. That's why part of the reason why I think shipping is such a big thing, because when you're in the desert for so long, everything starts to look like water. Even characters that you probably don't think should be shipped, even characters that you think probably shouldn't be shipped together, you're still just like, but there's chemistry or whatever. Like Bakugo and Deku on My Hero Academia, they're so problematic, but I'm still just like, nah, I don't know if you guys are My Hero Academia fans, but I'm like Bakugo and Deku, like I'm like, yeah, put or like Luca, like, but yeah, like, I hate that narrative. People like, oh, everything doesn't have to be gay. It's like everything isn't gay. Or like when characters that have been quote unquote straight for a long time, like an Iceman or et cetera, will come up. Tim Drake will come out. It's like, oh, that's you're pushing your agenda or whatever, as if people don't come out later in life. Like, even though these characters have existed for decades, they're still canonically like Iceman is like in his 20s. Tim Drake is like 17. So technically he's still coming out at a young age. So it's like,
yeah. And I mean, I
and then the comics code,
like,
sorry, the last thing, and the Comics Code of Authority didn't end until the late 2000s. So like in a lot of ways, they weren't allowed to introduce.
They weren't allowed to,
Yeah, like Chris Claremont wanted Mystique and Destiny to be married since the 80s, but he wasn't allowed to. Storm to be bisexual, he wasn't allowed to. Kitty Pryde to be bisexual, he wasn't allowed to. He wanted Mystique to be Nightcrawler's father and Destiny to be the mother. And so like, in almost like a trans type of way, wasn't allowed to. So it's like only now we start slowly starting to get that representation.
Absolutely. Like, and it's wild to me that like, I think there's a lot of context that I think a lot of consumers of comics and media like this don't have, which they wouldn't know anything about, like the Hays Code and like on all these codes like in comics that prevents creators from being able to do certain things. Like people just kind of think like, oh, they just didn't have queer people in these books because they didn't exist or they didn't want to. It's like, no, we've always been here, babe. But like there have literally been systems in place to keep us from being able to tell our own stories. Like, and people don't realize that. So every time that I see like people that leave like weird comments on your videos talking about stuff like this, and I'm like, babe, like you don't understand that like people come out later in life. So yes, some people might have full on wives and kids and all that stuff, but still come out as gay later. I have family members that have done that. And it's like, those are real experiences to real people that actually happens. And that should also be reflected in our media that we consume as well, because to show that there are so many different types of ways to exist in this world. And especially in a medium like comics, why wouldn't, like, where the possibilities are endless? Why not? Why be beholden to these our real world stigmas and our real world like issues that we have? We can definitely talk about them, and we should be talking about them on the page, but like, we're not beholden to these rules when it's a world where mutants exist. Why can't they all be queer? Why aren't they all queer? As far as I'm concerned, they are.
I agree. I say all the mutants are queer. I'm like, every member of the Bat family is queer. I said what I said. Like,
they can stay mad.
I'm like, if you're in space, you're a Green Lantern, Guardians of the Galaxy, everybody's pansexual.
Yeah.
Thor is pansexual. All the Asgardians are pansexual because it makes sense. Like if
Right.
it wasn't for the what I call the straight agenda, a lot more characters in comics would be queer because it does make sense. Like Thor and Loki are literally from the same place. And Loki once said in the Young Avengers, what you guys on Earth think of as sex and sexuality, we don't think of that on Asgard. There's just sex acts, and that's it.
Yeah.
Thor was born in the same world. Why isn't he, licking some kielbasa sausage from time to time? Especially since he's all about being especially since he's all about being hedonistic and pleasure. Like, I'm not gonna get graphic. I was about to get graphic, but never mind. But it's a whole. Thor would be doing it. Like, so like. Yeah, but like, but and a lot of people also think just because like gay marriage is legal or because you're seeing more queer characters in comics, like gay people have got over or like we shall overcome. It's all the fight is said and done. But it's like, no, just this year alone, I think the White House press secretary said like 451 anti-LGBTQ bills were introduced just this year alone. We're only in February. And so like, there's still a fight, there's still a struggle, there's still a push that needs to be had. That's why I keep saying representation matters and representation equals normalization. And we have to be the loudest voices. And even if there isn't a table for us, we have to make our table.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I want to kind of turn it over to both either Robyn and Stephanie. I'd love to hear more from the two of you. So let's see, like there's so many places that we can go. There's so many things that we can talk about, but we only have so much time. So going forward for the future of comics, what would you like to see more of? I'll start with you, Robyn.
I think thinking about the future of comics, I really don't have that much faith in mainstream comics.
Yeah.
I honestly enjoy making them for money. Sorry if that's like not necessarily the best thing to say, but the truth is that that's like the only way to make any money is to depend on a corporation that's hopefully going to allow me to do what I want to do and make it as Black or queer as possible, which luckily, like for a newbie, a real one, that was my experience. And I just feel like I was really lucky to be able to work on that. And working with DC has been great. Have my other experiences in working with comics been great? No, Nike. But like they like went ahead and like what I was going to say is they went out of their way to literally squash our queer characters' queerness again. And like outside of, which is why I like even started by saying I really don't believe mainstream will get to a place, at least in my lifetime. But I also believe that about culture in general. I consider myself an Afro-pessimist. But that's why I have so much faith in indie comics. I think people having their own power to like make the comics that they want to and not being funded by like more mainstream, it's even more validating knowing that like, your thing is too Black and too like queer. The art that you're making is just for you, and other people who are just like you also want to see that detail and that like aspect of the nitty gritty that reflects them almost exactly. And that's why I like really, really love going to conventions and seeing like the other Black queer creators. And like even there, like we're still super underrepresented. And like I like run around and hopefully like spot one or two and I'm like, give me everything and like go home and like just eat it up. Because that's what nourishes me. I don't necessarily pick up every book unless I'm like following you guys on social media, and that's where I find like the mainstream and like I'm able to pick that out.
Absolutely. I always make the joke when it comes to convention season that like we're like always passing around the same $20 from table to table to table. And it's like by one friend's thing, buying another friend's thing. It's building that community and showing that support in that way. We're all trying to contribute and help each other out in every way possible. Same question for you, Stephanie. Like, what would you like to see going forward in the future of comics, whether that be mainstream or independently? What would you like to see?
I want to see it all, mainstream and independent. Currently, right now, I've been predominantly mainstream, but that's because they keep on coming, and if they're going to keep coming and allowing me to do what I am able to do, then I will do it. And so far, I've been able to do that. And it's been nice to go to conventions and have just 2 weeks ago at Charlotte Minicon. I was a little Black girl, and it was Jordan. She came up, her dad brought her over, and she was really shy. She was making her own comment and wasn't sure if she could both I don't really get into fashion and makeup and still do her nerdy thing. And I was like, you absolutely can. What is stopping you? I'm here. I'm not even supposed to be here. I am despite. And for that reason, like I want you to know that you can be here too. So if you want to make indie, please go out and flourish and do that. If you want to do mainstream, I'm here to make sure that hopefully by the time you come around, that it's a lot easier for you than it was for me. But in the meantime, I am going to do, and can we cut?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
I'm
think
gonna do what the
so.
fuck I'm gonna do
Yeah.
while I'm
Period.
here. And I've been able to do that. So in this period.
Yeah.
So you know, if all these other folks get to take up space here too, then I damn sure get to do that. And I'm gonna fucking do it. And I've been doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely more of that energy going forward for me as well. Like I had a similar experience at Emerald City Comic Con back in August of last year. I had stepped away to go to a panel, and my friend that was at the table with me, the writer of the Black Mage, Daniel Barnes, he was there, and this little black kid who couldn't have been no more, this little black boy could have been no more, I'm gonna try to do this without crying, could have been no more than like 7 or 8. And like decked out in like Pokemon stuff with like a Pokemon hat with Pikachu on it, like a Pikachu jersey and like Pokemon shoes. And I'm like, I was that kid. Like that was me when I was that age. And to be on the opposite side of it, that kid coming up to my table wanting my autograph, like on the graphic novel that I made, that is supposed to like, you know, get little black kids to like want to read comics to see themselves as a hero. That was like everything. I literally sobbed at the table for like 10 minutes. And then other people were like, hey DJ, and I'm like, yeah, like that was kind of like the moment where I realized like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Like this is what it's all about. And it's incredible. So like being able to help inspire future creatives, like, and tell those kids like, man, there is space for you here. That's like the dream. And that's the goal. And hopefully, yes, like you were saying, Stephanie, that like I hope it's easier for them than it was for us to get in here to try to do what it is that we want to do, because hasn't been easy. No, not.
I mean, like that meme where our two little sisters like, I can't read. That's how I treat it. I'm walking up in here anyway.
Yeah, so. Exactly. I'm gonna do it anyway because that's how I am. Like that's just what it is. I'm just gonna do it. Period. Okay. So now I think is a good time we're getting close to the 15-minute mark. I'd love to open up the Q&A, and to the folks that are the participants that are in here, please give us your questions. We'd love to hear from you. Yeah. So I guess this first question is for me. It says, DJ, I literally just bought Young Men in Love. What are some of your favorite romance tropes in queer comics or queer representation? I'm real good about a will they, won't they. I love like a well-written that push and pull, like, oh, when are they gonna kiss? Are they gonna kiss? Are they gonna kiss? Like being able to write that buildup, like it takes a skilled writer to be able to write and build that tension in the script, and then a very skilled artist to like draw that tension on the page to build up that anticipation to the payoff of the kiss or whatever it may be. Love that. I love a will they, won't they. Robyn, what are some of your favorite tropes in queer romance and comics and stories?
I think it's like besties, and then suddenly they're like, wait, is this just kind of gay? I think like that's my favorite trope. I also love like, I don't know, people who are fighting. I don't know, and they're like, wait, maybe we're just attracted to each other. Love that. Because I don't want that in real life. I just want to see it happen.
It's like, oh no, fight. Oh no, they're kissing. Oh, Stephanie, what about you? What are some of your favorite tropes?
I love friends to enemies. Enemies to enemies that we have a mutual respect. So the 2F, will fuck, will fight. And then I also love marriage of convenience, which I know is usually more hetero, but I have seen some queer stories where you kind of get that, or just more convenience of, hey, you can come stay with me, and then a relationship blossoms. But yeah, I love it all. Listen, if it's well written and the sex scene is popping, And I'm there.
Yeah.
Yes, for a poppin' sex scene. Blood, sex, gore, and magic. That's my thing. There we go.
Yeah. Oh my God. I do love an enemies to lovers. I do.
Yeah.
It's
Same.
I mean, if it's well written, I'm like, I'm injected into me immediately. I want it directly into my brain. I need it now.
Same. Enemies to lovers is like one of my enemies to lovers is one of my favorite tropes too. Like not so much, I can't really think of a queer one, but like my favorite is because I'm a big Buffy and Spike person. Like a lot of people, even Sarah Michelle Gellar herself says she thinks Buffy should be with Angel. I'm like, no, I love the dynamic between Buffy and Spike, and they started as enemies, mortal enemies.
God, they're so toxic. Oh my God.
But they got better. Once Spike got his soul. but it took work. It took seasons and seasons of work.
It did.
And so that's what I love. I don't like the enemy where it's like it just happens overnight. It's like we were just fighting last week. It's like, no, like I want the build up and the work and the tension. And it's like, wait a minute, I think I'm attracted. And I also like will they, won't they? So where it's like they're basically in a relationship without actually fucking, but everything else, like the fighting and I'll die for you, put my life on the line. Like, yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for it every time. So we have another question from William Brown that says, Nubia, a real one was amazing. Are there plans for a sequel? Maybe a live action TV series?
Well, I can't talk too much about it, but hopefully, fingers crossed. And if not, I just do a lot of fan art. So I don't know.
If there's anything for the people that are listening, there's anything I can say about the comics industry, like especially if you're working on a licensed property, there's a lot you can't talk about for a very long time. And you just gotta just sit there and be like, well, it comes up when it comes out. It's you'll find out what it is at some point. I'm doing a thing. You might see it. Can't talk about it much, but I'm doing a thing. Okay, let's see what else we have here in the questions. Let's see. Yeah, I think we kind of talked about earlier, like kind of some of the tropes that we hate. But yeah, I think by and large, as a group, we hate the barrier gaze trope for sure. Anything that is like always like centered around like a fake version of whatever it is, whatever is their version of HIV or AIDS, making those characters sick and dying off. Those are kind of things that we definitely all agreed collectively as a group that we do not enjoy in terms of those tropes. Let's see. This question is for everyone. So this is from TJ Marksdale. This question is for everybody. Where do you see queer BIPOC representation in the world of animation going in the future? That's a harder question. As someone that has worked in animation before, you're dealing with larger studios. So if you're dealing with a bigger studio, it's difficult because there's a lot of things that you can or can't do because of the people that own said organizations and of what they want or what they don't want. So it's tough, but like, as you can see with examples like the Owl House or Amphibia and other shows that have been on major television networks that have like queer representation, how that kind of shakes out, unfortunately.
Even Legend of Korra, like.
Yeah, how like there's queerness. It's at the very end. It's at the very end. It's like, hey, that character's gay, and then the show's over. So
there's the comics though. The comics are gay.
The comics are very gay. And shout out to Irene Coe who illustrated a lot of the comics for Korra. But yeah, it's getting better, hopefully, slowly but surely. But Stephanie, please.
I was gonna say, check out Homegirl and Devil Dinosaur.
Yes.
I got to watch the entire first season, but it's gay. Just normally, like it just exists in that universe, which I was very surprised to see. And it's not kind of like a ham-fisted situation, but I mean like inauthentic. It just is. And I hate to bring it up as like they're mainstream, but it's happening. So I was very delighted to see that.
And to piggyback off that, I was going to also say, which is on Netflix, Dragon Age Absolution. Based off the video game. It's gay as hell.
It's
very gay. Yeah.
Castlevania.
Not just side characters, but the main characters. Yeah, Castlevania.
Yeah, loved it.
So there's some of it.
Yeah,
Not enough.
I feel like we're getting more of that in like adult animation, so to speak, right? Like that we're seeing that in those spaces, and we're getting it in more like media that's geared towards younger audiences. Like again, you see that in like in the Owl House and in Amphibia and in other shows, Big City Greens, like Steven Universe is a prime example of that. So we're seeing strides for that happening, but again, it's so hard to get that stuff like through production and it to actually make it to the air. It's so difficult. I have so many friends that work in the space, and it is an uphill battle for sure. So I think this is going to be a great question to kind of like wrap up on, and then we can kind of go into promoting your socials and all that good stuff before we wrap up for the panel. This is from Andrew Tanner. What would you say to someone who feels there is more work to do, even within diverse queer representation? Like, can two dark-skinned people be the leads and actually be in love? Can we explore the brown diversity in the diasporas, Asian, African, Latino, and brown and Black and brown relationships? Your personal project aside, of course, just generally speaking. There's always more work to be done. I'm a firm believer there's way more work to be done. But yeah, Stephanie, Robyn, do you have anything you want to say in regards to Andrew and what they're feeling about the current state of things?
Yeah, more work. Work.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Yeah, I think definitely, obviously, more work needs to be done. I think that it is possible, and I think it exists, but not in the mainstream. Will it get there? I hope so. I think one of the main problems right now is that people are trying to find ways to make it like just give you a little taste of it and then be like, oh, but it's not queer writers. Like even right now, I'm watching like the new Law and Order, like organized crime, because Stabler's back or whatever. And his boss is a Black woman who is gay, and like she has a wife who is also like gay, like, well, duh, she's gay, but they're both Black and both like darker skinned. And it's like interesting to see that play out. But the relationship doesn't work, but I don't know. I feel like gay people aren't writing it necessarily.
Yeah.
So you can tell, and that's I feel
you can always tell.
Right. So we're not there yet, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we're not. Yeah, it's like we need to be in the writers' rooms. We need to be the directors, the any kind of behind the scenes things where we can go in and make an impact. We need to be there. So we can make sure that these stories are authentic, that these stories are genuine, and that we're not falling into old tropes as we often do. Again, like fridging and burying your gays. Like we often fall into those tropes because they don't live those experiences, or those characters are very one note and very flat, and they have no dimension to them. I think that's one last question. What is everybody reading, watching? What are you enjoying right now? Like what's making you feel good, whether that be comics, animation, a game, whatever. What are you watching, experiencing, ingesting in terms of media right now?
Well, I don't know if it's necessarily making me happy, but I've gotten grossly obsessed with Junji Ito. I don't know. It's just something. I just love the fact that he goes there, but it just feels freeing at the same time. Like there's no limitation and there's no other intent behind it. And then as far as reading, if I'm not reading comics, I'm reading romance novels, and I just burned through this older author that I found. She's been around for a while, Cheryl Lister. So I just ran through her stuff. So that is what is bringing me smiles. Horror and romance.
Yeah, what about you? What about you, Michael? What are you reading?
I just had to grab the plug. I just finished reading Rodney Barnes and Jason Alexander's Blackula. It just came out. So it's based, if you guys haven't seen the Blackula movie, it's based off the 70s blaxploitation movie. And it's actually the first Black horror movie in American history, and the first Black vampire movie. So definitely check that out. Just finished it. The art is gorgeous. It's by Jason Alexander, and the writing is pretty good. I can't wait for there to be a sequel. Hopefully there's a sequel. In terms of reading or watching The Last of Us, I'm like obsessed with The Last of Us. And then also something that's queer as hell, Interview with the Vampire just ended. If you guys hadn't seen season 1 of Interview with the Vampire, it's gay as hell. I'm obsessed with that show. I cannot wait for there to be a season 2. So those are some of the things that.
Amazing. I love it. And I just picked up Our Colors by an artist, Genro Tagame, who is just like super well known in like the Japanese manga and like the kind of like bara space, like an incredible illustrator. The previous book that they did was I believe the title is My Brother's Husband, which was adapted to like a live action movie, and it was very sweet and cute and all that good stuff and sad. Our Colors is about like a younger Japanese teenager who is mentored by an older queer Japanese man, and kind of seeing the parallels of their lives together and how like the experiences are both the same and different and all of that. And I just can't wait to dive into it. I want something that tugs at my heartstrings, that kind of shows like these two different generations communicating together, because I think we're finally getting to a place now to where we actually have queer elders that are alive and well, that are with us, and to have stories that are about those dynamics, I think are very necessary. So yeah, we're almost at time. So I want to use this this moment for everybody to like talk about what upcoming products you got going on, your socials. Let's plug it. So Robyn, I'll start with you. Anything you want to plug?
Not really, I guess. You can find me anywhere at Robrosmo. I'll type it in the chat, but it's ROBROSMO. That's my website, that's my Instagram. Right now I'm actually working on something for Jamila Rouser. I'm always working with Jamila Rouser.
Yeah.
And Black Jose Press, she's putting out a magazine that she got like funded with some big award. Woo, love that girl. So oh yeah, what I'm enjoying right now. Yes. I like circulate between Drag Race, Abbott Elementary, and The Nanny. So
excellent.
I'm just hitting those points in a triangle every day.
Yeah. Always a Drag Race something in my purview as well. There's always I just want drag entertainers on my screen at all times. And protect Abbott Elementary at all costs. Stephanie, please talk to us about what you're working on, where people can find you online.
I wish I could talk about what I'm working on, but I can't. There is a new gay character on the way, I'll say that much. But follow on social, you can go at Steph_I_Will, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all those places. But yeah, there is lots on the way. So please be on the lookout for that, because and before I break the end there. But anyway, there's some shit on the way.
Hell yeah, love that. And Michael, please let us know what you're working on and where we can find you.
You can find me across all social media: TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Black Gay Comic Geek. And currently for Black History Month, I'm doing a little bit something different on my page, Black Gay Comic Geek. Instead of talking about comics for this month, for Black History Month, I'm taking what I think is an important Black film in film history and giving it some spotlight. So like I talked about Blackula, Bebe's Kids, Lady Sings the Blues, etc. So you're interested in learning a little bit of Black film history, come swing over to my YouTube channels. And then every week I go live on my channel, on my YouTube channel, to talk about each episode of The Last of Us. I'm actually going to see Creed 3 on Monday night, so I'll be reviewing that as well. So just follow me on social medias and you'll get all reviews and all of that stuff. That's basically what I do. I talk about gay shit, nerd shit, blood, sex, gore, magic, fantasy, all of that stuff. And
you can find me on social media. I'm Oh Hey DJ everywhere. I'm often screaming about Sailor Moon, Drag Race, and Street Fighter. That's mostly what I've been talking about as of late. You can pick up the anthology Young Men in Love pretty much anywhere you find lovely comic books. So many incredible male queer artists that are in here, artists and writers, a bunch of my personal friends, like incredible work. Glad nominated. I never thought I would have a nominated anything ever. And then my graphic novel, The Black Mage, dropped in 2019. You pick it up anywhere fine comic books are sold. Get it directly from the publisher at Oni Press. Go to onipress.com. You can look it up by my name, DJ Kirkland. You can find me there. But yeah, I'm Oh Hey DJ on everything. I'll always be screaming about Sailor Moon everywhere. But yes, thank you to the panelists for coming and giving your time to talk about all this gay shit in comics with us. We really appreciate you taking out the time of your day to do that. I know we've all got a lot going on. And for those of you that are attending VirtuousCon, reminder that, you know, the show floor is open. So get out there, follow the bit.ly link on the main page to get access to all the good stuff that's going on all weekend. But yeah, find us online. Let's keep the conversations going. Yeah, I'm OHDJ on everything, and Mistress Isabel Brooks is in my top 3, along with Sasha Colby. Like the other two in terms of the top 4, I couldn't tell you yet. I want to see Anitra there, but that's a conversation for another day. But thank you so much for your time, everyone. This was a lovely conversation. Have a wonderful weekend and a wonderful rest of your Black History Month.
You too. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care.